Good morning, everybody. My name is Rohit Singh. I am Head of Market Entry and Research at Aviation India. I would like to welcome you all in this webinar on opportunities in infrastructure sector in India. I would also like to welcome the speaker for this webinar, Ms. Yukti Agrawal, who is an advisor for infrastructure sector at IBC India. Yukti will talk about opportunities in various subsectors of infrastructure in India, challenges, future outlook, and government initiatives in this sector. Post that will be the questions and answers session. Before we begin, I would like to familiarize you with the toolbox on the right-hand side of your screens. Just to let you know, we will have everyone on mute during the course of the webinar to keep any background noise to a minimum. But if you have a question, please drop it into the little bracket on the toolbox to your right in the please type your question here box to send me your question, and I will take it up during our Q&A session at the end. For now, to make sure you can all hear me clearly, could I please ask that you all use the raise your hand button on the toolbar? Could you please click the raise your hand button? Okay, thank you. Now, I would like to request Yukti Agrawal, who is an advisor infrastructure at IBC, to talk about the opportunities in infrastructure in India. Yukti, over to you.
A very good morning to all of you, and thank you for joining the session today. My name is Yukti, and in the next 20 minutes, I plan on providing you with a brief overview of the infrastructure sector in India. Infrastructure, as you all know, is an incredibly large sector encompassing subsectors such as energy, transport, built environment, water and sanitation, social infrastructure and telecommunications. And these subsectors are further divided as it can be seen in this diagram. The ones highlighted in red are the most promising subsectors that present immense collaboration opportunities, and I will be talking about them in more detail in the coming slides. Now, with the coming in of the new government, the infrastructure sector has received a major facelift, and about £600 billion need to be invested in the sector between 2012 and 2017. And this is definitely good news for foreign investors, as India aims to attract 50% of this investment from the private sector. There's a lot of renewed focus on public-private partnerships, and the government has paid a lot of attention in this regard. Institutions such as 3P India have been set up to support PPP projects in the country, and UK has special expertise in this sector as it has delivered a lot of large and complex infrastructure projects on PPP basis, such as the high-speed one and the London underground infrastructure that I'm sure you're all very well acquainted with. There's also the airports which are going to be developed on the PPP modes. The key infrastructure projects and financing opportunities in this sector are smart cities, economic industrial corridors, the Mumbai Trans-Harbour Link, and the Navi Mumbai International Airport. And I will be talking about some of these opportunities in further detail as we go in. So with respect to smart cities, the Union Government of India has embarked on an ambitious program to develop 100 smart cities across the country in a bid to decongest the existing cities. And for this initiative, £750 million have been allocated for both greenfield and brownfield sites. This is a great potential for UK businesses, as UK, as we all know, has expertise in design, research, finance, and engineering services. And this in total should account for 25% of the total smart cities market. So this is again very good news for the companies based out of UK. Now, all this talk of smart cities, why is everyone talking about smart cities? What are smart cities? So really, if you think of the components of smart cities, they comprise of smart buildings, which means energy efficient buildings with low carbon footprints, smart transportation modes, smart living, which is e-governance, smart technologies, smart waste and water management systems, and also having technology integrated in all walks of life, especially in terms of Wi-Fi and sensors all over the city. And with respect to smart cities, the major opportunity areas would be in terms of smart grids, green transportation, smart meters, green buildings, as I mentioned before, and water and sanitation systems. And in this regard, with respect to smart cities, the government has introduced a lot of new initiatives for smart cities. As you can see on the screen, the National Industrial Corridor Authority has been set up. This authority, the main function is to coordinate the development of industrial corridors with smart cities in them, and also the 3 new smart cities have been introduced, the master planning of which is going on for one of the industrial corridors, which I will be talking about a little later. As I mentioned earlier, the key infrastructure projects and financing opportunities include smart cities as well as industrial corridors. And now moving on to the economic and industrial corridors. The 4 key projects in this regard are the Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor, the Bangalore-Mumbai Economic Corridor, the Amritsar-Kolkata Industrial Corridor, and the Chennai-Bangalore Industrial Corridor. Out of these projects, the Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor, DMIC, is the biggest infrastructure project in the country, and almost £54 billion has been estimated for this project, and this project is being developed in collaboration with Japan. As we can see on this slide, the 2 dots in green, Delhi and Mumbai, this is connected by a spine which is the dedicated freight corridor in orange, and 24 nodes and clusters are being developed on either sides of this freight corridor. The major aim of this project was to develop this as a global manufacturing and a trading hub, and it is a 1,483 kilometer long corridor spanning across 6 states. And the UK-based consultancy Halcro had been designated as the urban planners and doing the master planning feasibility studies for 2 nodes of this project. And as we all know, Halcro is a UK-based consultancy, so doing one of the biggest projects in India. The second project, as I mentioned, is the Bangalore-Mumbai Economic Corridor. This is a 1,000-kilometer long economic corridor which connects Bangalore and Mumbai, and it is proposed to be developed in joint partnership between India and UK. As I mentioned earlier, DMIC was an industrial corridor. This is more an economic corridor, so it is targeting socio-economic networks such as housing, education, skills training, and healthcare, and it is estimated at £36 billion. This corridor would also present immense opportunities in transportation networks, utilities, buildings, operation and management, and also since this project is in collaboration with the UK, so there's a lot of opportunity for UK-based companies to really venture into this project, and this is still in the conceptual stage. Besides these corridors, there's a very strong presence of British firms in India, and they have some thriving practices in the country. In the field of infrastructure, the presence can be seen in terms of architecture, design and engineering consultancies, infrastructure companies, construction companies, and the really big project management firms. Some of these that are doing really well are Atkins, Arup, Halcro, Mott MacDonald, ADP Architects, BDP, and Binoy, who are doing extremely big work, and they've also had a very successful track record with them having established offices in the country since a really long time, and also they're extending their skill force in India. And some of the really big projects are being done by Mott MacDonald in terms of transportation. The metros, the Hyderabad and Chennai metro are being developed by Mott MacDonald. out of which Hyderabad Metro is one of the largest PPP projects in the country today. As I mentioned earlier, in terms of PPP modes, airports is a very important sector, and the Delhi-Mumbai International Airports, the new terminals, were planned by Arup and Parsons Winkelhoff, which now acquired by Balfour Beatty, which is a UK group. And also big DMIC projects, which I was just talking about, the DMIC corridor. The master planning of these projects has been done by URS, Scott Wilson, and Halco Consultancies. So really, as we can see, these projects really talk of success stories in India, and they're all UK-based companies. Some of the challenges in the infrastructure sector are to do with policy and regulatory framework, land acquisition being a very important one, and obviously clearances in terms of environment, because a lot of projects get stuck when it comes to clearances. And besides policy and regulatory framework, finance is another aspect which is a major challenge in terms of financing for PPP projects. And also the skills in India, there's a major gap. So in terms of project managing and engineering, there's definitely gaps over there which can be filled in, and that's a huge area, huge potential for the companies to really intervene in terms of providing their expertise to fill up these gaps. And now, to mitigate some of these challenges that I just spoke about, the Make in India campaign was recently introduced by the Modi government. And this campaign includes major new initiatives that have been designed to facilitate investment, foster innovation, protect intellectual property, and build best-in-class manufacturing infrastructure. Some of these initiatives include the new infrastructure, like I spoke about, the corridors, the industrial clusters, the smart cities, nurturing innovation and skill development, and also a new way of looking at things, a new mindset. So really, like, all the investors that are coming here for the first time are going to get a lot of guidance and assistance in this regard. And new processes, like I said, the environmental regulatory environment really requires attention, and the Make in India campaign is looking at simplifying some of these regulatory features and also making it easy to do business in the country, de-licensing and deregulation. So these processes should really help going forward. And like I said, a lot of thrust to the infrastructure sector with the coming in of this campaign, and a lot of information is available online about this new campaign that you can all log in and view. Now, some of the key highlights of the budget with respect to infrastructure finance. This consists of financing infrastructure projects. 4 infrastructure debt funds have been registered. Tax-free bonds have been introduced. Credit enhancement has been given to infrastructure companies in partnership with ADB. And really, like, there has been a lot of push on encouraging investment in this sector. So investment allowance has been given to projects that are more than 100 crores. The Rural Infrastructure Development Fund has been there. It has been, the corpus has been raised to about INR 20,000 crores. And this is great news because one of the challenges was financing infrastructure projects, as I mentioned, and the budget spells good news for the sector with so many initiatives that are being taken to enhance financing for this sector. And a few initiatives for this sector have been the setting up of the Cabinet Committee on Investment, the CCI. One of the major roles of this committee is to monitor and review infrastructure projects, and for a time-bound implementation of the projects that are above 10 billion INR, and also timely clearances, which is also one of the major issues in infrastructure-related projects. A London-listed feeder fund has also been set up to raise funds from overseas investors and to invest them in Indian infrastructure debt funds. So going forward, like as I mentioned earlier, UK has expertise in design and planning, construction, but besides those, it also has a lot of potential for collaboration in sectors such as advanced technology, urban renewal, waterfront and heritage conservation, providing sustainable solutions, O&M, project planning and management, and also skills and training. As I said, skills gap was one of the major challenges which is being faced. And since there's so much of push on sustainability, so really UK companies can intervene here and provide sustainable solutions. Now this graph on your screen talks about the sector-wise investment pattern. This is for the 12th five-year plan. And looking at this graph, we can see that the investment versus the private sector participation ratio, which is this graph shows that telecommunication is one of the sectors that has had a lot of investment and private sector participation ratio, followed by renewable energy, which did not have that much investment, but a lot of potential for participation with 88% participation in the sector, followed by the port sector and the airports, and lastly by MRTS and roads and bridges. So really, to sum it up, the telecommunication sector would be the maximum, followed by energy and transportation sectors. Now the two really high value sectors, the priority sectors which are now open to global participation, are railways and construction. And I will be talking now very briefly about some of the key features of these sectors and what the FDI policies for these sectors entail. Starting with the construction sector. The construction sector, as I've been mentioning throughout, 100 new smart cities have been planned for construction, and about $1 trillion of investment has been projected at the end of 2017. So a lot of activities are happening in the construction sector, and almost $650 billion of investment is required in the next 20 years for this sector, which is actually really groundbreaking for this sector. And in terms of the FDI policy, almost 100% of FDI has been permitted through the automatic route in terms of townships, housing, built-up infrastructure, construction development projects. And the investment opportunities for this sector are mostly for providing green building solutions, training and skill development of construction sector workers, urban water supply, sewage treatment, and smart sustainable cities and integrated townships, providing technologies and solutions in this regard. Also, construction development has potential in residential, retail, commercial, and the hospitality sector. And the next sector which has a lot of potential would be the railway sector, as I mentioned. And India is the world's largest passenger carrier, with about 1,000 billion worth of projects to be awarded through the PPP mode in railways. And it's also the 4th largest rail freight carrier in the world. 100% FDI under the automatic route has been permitted in construction, O&M in specified railway infrastructure projects, and the investment opportunities in this regard are in terms of the manufacture of components, high-speed trains, dedicated freight corridors, high-speed tracks and suburban corridors, and redevelopment of railway stations, power generation and energy-saving projects, and railway lines to and from coal mines and ports, and the projects relating to electrification, high-speed tracks, and suburban corridors. So as we can see, a lot of investment opportunities for UK-based companies. Now moving on to aviation, as I mentioned earlier, aviation is getting a lot of push from the government, and at present it is the 3rd largest market. It is planning to be the 3rd largest market by 2020. 800 aircraft are projected to be there by 2020, and almost the passenger traffic is going to be 60 million by the time it is 2017. So clearly, as you can see by these figures, a lot of potential going forward in terms of international airlines. And again, 100% FDI is permitted for greenfield airport projects under the automatic routes. And some of the opportunities in the sector include the PPP projects for the Navi Mumbai and the airport coming up in Goa. Also, 250 new airports are going to be developed by 2020. And the Indian airports are emulating the SEZ Erythropolis model. We're going forward now. The next sector, which is also extremely important, is the port sector. And 73 public-private partnership projects have been sorted for the port sector, and almost an investment of 430 billion is going to be invested between 2010 and 2014, with 87 new projects that are already being approved. And India is in a very strategic position because it lies on one of the busiest trade routes of the world, and of course there's a lot of potential for shipping and doing business, trading with India. And India has 12 major ports and 60 non-major ports. Again, 100% FDI is allowed under the automatic routes for projects related to the construction and maintenance of ports and harbors, and this is subject to regulations and laws. But the investment opportunities in this sector are to do with port development, port support services, ship repair facilities and ports. So these are really the three key places where the investment opportunities lie, and ports is definitely a sure bet. Roads and highways. This sector has about 100 completed public-private partnership projects already, and about 100,000 kilometers of national highways are projected to be completed by the end of 2017. About $3.8 billion at an outlay is going to be planned for highways, and about 19 billion is going to be spent, US dollars is going to be spent for the infrastructure development between 2012 and 2017 for roads and highways. And this is definitely great news for collaboration opportunities in this sector. And again, 100% FDI is allowed under automatic route in road and highway sector, subject to applicable laws and regulation. So as we're going forward, we're seeing that in terms of FDI, the foreign direct investment, it's mostly 100% for all of these sectors, and which is why I'm focusing only on the sectors where there's a lot of potential for investment. And some of the areas where investments can be done in this sector are basically in expressways. Like I mentioned earlier, renewable energy has a lot of potential. It's the 5th largest power generation portfolio in India and the 5th largest wind energy producer as well. Also in terms of solar power, 20,000 megawatts of production will be done by 2022. And 1,500 megawatts of annual PV capacity is projected by the end of 2014. And again, renewable energy has potential in terms of investment when it comes to clean energy for wind power, solar, hydro, biomass. All these components have a lot of potential for investment, and 100% FDI is permitted under the automatic route for renewable energy generation and distribution of projects that are again subject to the Electricity Act of 2003. Wind energy, solar energy, hydro, and biopower are really the areas where one can look at investment opportunities. So the sector really is gaining a lot of momentum and a lot of big players in the market already. Now coming to the last one, which is oil and gas. It's the 2nd largest refiner in Asia. It's the 4th largest consumer of crude oil and petroleum products in the world. And about 47 trillion cubic feet of natural gas reserves are present in India. About 96 trillion cubic feet of estimated shale gas reserves are currently there. So like we can see, oil and gas is quite an important sector, seeing all these figures. And in terms of FDIs, again, 100% FDI is permitted in this sector. And this is under the automatic route in the exploration activities of oil and natural gas fields, infrastructure related to the marketing of petroleum products and natural gas, petroleum product pipelines, natural gas pipelines, LNG regasification, market study and formulation, and petrol refining in the private sector. So the opportunities for investment lie in shale, upstream sector, the E&P services and the equipment companies, pipeline transportations, and the refining sector. And I think I have broadly covered most of the sectors where there are investment opportunities with respect to FDI policies and really where there are opportunities for collaboration and investment. So I think I'm going to end my presentation with that. And if you have any questions, I would be very happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Yukti. That was indeed a useful presentation. Now we will start our Q&A session. I have one question from one of the participants that Yukti, can you elaborate on the 3P Institute for PPP projects?
Sure. So basically with the coming in of the new government, recently the finance minister, Mr. Arun Jaitley, in the budget has allocated about rupees 500 crore for 3P India. It's a new institution which is being proposed as an agency that will recraft and renovate the public-private partnership model, the PPP model. And this is going to be a non-profit company on the lines of National Skill Development Council, NSDC. But however, it's not going to have any regulatory power. It will look at a whole gamut of issues obstructing the growth of PPPs in India, such as model concessionaire agreements, bidding processes, dispute resolution mechanism. However, the policy making will still be with the finance ministry, and this new body will be more like a repository of knowledge. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Yukti. There is another question with respect to the FDI policy. What's the FDI policy when you talk about the aviation sector?
The aviation sector, there's a 100% FDI which is permitted for greenfield airport projects under the automatic route. And also for the other sectors, as I mentioned, for railways, construction, it's all 100% FDI. Ports, oil and gas, and these are all 100% through the automatic route.
Another question for you, Yukti. Are there any big events which are coming up in the next couple of months which are worth to attend, and it's worth for the British companies to come over India to attend that?
Yes, there are actually a couple of big events which are coming up, but most of these are going to be starting off 2015. So one of them is the Vibrant Gujarat Summit, which is going to be taking place in Gujarat from the 11th to the 13th of January. And the second really big event is the Global Bengal Business Summit. I think it's called the Bengal Leads 2015, and this is also happening in January.
Thank you, Yukti. There is another question that is regarding, are there any Indian government representatives or ministers from the infrastructure sector who are planning to visit UK in the coming months, which could possibly provide the opportunities for companies to meet them in the UK network and talk about some business possibilities?
Yes, Rohit, some visits have been scheduled, but you never know whether till they're confirmed. But as of now, the tentative plan by a couple of ministers that I am aware of right now, one of the visits is going to be by Mr. Nitin Gadkari, who is the Minister of Road, Transport, Highways and Shipping. Also, there is one visit which is slightly tentative, but also in November, by the Chief Minister of Rajasthan, and one by the Secretary DIPP, Mr. Amitabh Kant.
Thank you. There's another question. Can you explain, Yukti, what do you mean by automatic route?
Rohit, automatic route is where there's no separate approvals required from the government.
Okay. And are there any examples of the rail PPP projects?
Yes, as I mentioned in my presentation, a couple of projects have been delivered on the PPP modes by UK-based companies, such as Mott McDonald. They're working on the Hyderabad metro projects, which is also one of the biggest projects in the country as of now. And a couple of more projects are also in the pipeline for the rail sector.
Okay. Also, there are some questions related to the regulatory side from, I can see from the Mary, which Mary, Yukti can possibly give you a more detailed answer on the foreign bank participation on the PPP side and all in a separate email communication. I can also see another question from Paul where he's asking about he's developing a small mobile hydro system which can create energy from rivers in remote areas. So his question is who should be the right people to connect with in India for such projects. So Paul, in fact, I can answer this question for you. In fact, we can discuss it offline, and this is an area where we are helping the British companies in terms of connecting them, introducing them to the right people. So we can discuss it offline in detail with you. I can see a few more questions popping up. Okay, this is an interesting question that we have noted lots of opportunity being tendered and then nothing happening for months and then some tender appearing again. So what assurances can we get on the viability of the projects really happening? So Yukti, I think with the new government
I think as I mentioned, Rohit, in my presentation, a lot of new initiatives have come up recently with the coming in of the new government, and definitely going forward there's a lot which is being done. A lot of new committees are being set up, a lot of new development authorities are there which are specifically focusing on this, and the Make in India campaign is really going to make the process easier because it looks at providing advice to the first-time investors and also making the doing business in the country a lot easier by making regulatory and policy framework a lot more feasible. And I think in terms of the projects and the tenders that are being stuck earlier, I don't think that problem is going to arise now. It's definitely going to be streamlined with the coming in of the government. So this is definitely good news.
Great, thank you. We can wait for a couple of more seconds if there are any more questions. There is another question on the smart cities. Yukti, are there some more areas of collaboration besides transport and built environment which were mentioned in your presentation?
So Rohit, yes, the focus of my presentation was transport and built environment. One of the reasons for that was because there are a lot of opportunities for collaboration there. But besides that also, I think UK has expertise in smart power solutions, in energy efficient buildings, integrated solutions for waste management, and I think the Smart Cities initiative will also create opportunities for the private sector, especially in terms, since a lot of technology majors such as Cisco, IBM, Schneider Electric are doing a lot of work, and they've signed a lot of contracts with respect to this. And one of the examples that I can think of is the Gift City in Gujarat, where the master plan has been master plan of the ICT infrastructure has been done up by British Telecom. And another example that I can think of is for Lavasa, which is again a smart city. And for this also Wipro and Cisco have been involved in the ICT services. So really Lavasa and Gift being the two of the first smart cities being planned in India. So a lot of potential with respect to ICT technology and energy efficient systems. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Yukti. Thank you, Yukti. I think if there are any other questions, as of now I don't see any more questions coming, but please feel free to share your questions with us. You will have the coordinates of Yukti and UKIBC colleagues. Just feel free to share your questions, and Yukti will be happy to respond to you on that. to give you a very quick brief on what UKIBC is doing currently to help the companies like yours. We are providing the market entry support from the point of view of any understanding, any knowledge gap you have about the India market. So we are providing our research services as well as the introduction services with potential partners in India or these different stakeholders or connecting with the various opportunities. Also, we are providing the infrastructure support to the British companies in India through our business center facilities, which are based in Gurgaon, Bangalore, and the new center is coming up in Mumbai by the end of this year. So we will be very happy to address to any of your queries and concerns on anything you want support in the India market. Just feel free to drop us an email, and we will gladly get back to you with all the requisite information. So once again, thank you very much. So once again, thank you very much for your time, and I hope this webinar was valuable to you. If you have any feedback or comments about today's session or a session that you would want to see us to do in the future, please feel free to get in touch. And yes, you all will receive the copy of the presentation as well, which Yukti has just now presented. So you will get a copy of the presentation along with the recording of the this webinar as well. So you can use it for your reference as well. So once again, thank you for joining us today. Have a very good day ahead.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.